record with this computer. Okay, we start. Behave yourselves because I started recording. I'll give it another moment and see if anybody else will join. But how's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
Why did I just?
Yeah, why did you decide to share the screen with us?
Yeah. No.
There we go.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
it's nice to know it's not me, it's you.
Give me a moment.
Have a drink. You don't look like Kilroy.
Right.
All right, let me share the screen with you of the text. So if you weren't able to print, you can see it.
Why?
Hold on, it's me now. Okay, here we go. Yep. So I'm just sharing the text with you that I sent out. So this week we actually have two portions, and we're trying to catch up with Israel because they're a week ahead of us in terms of reading of the Torah. So we are going to be doing Parshat Balak with Chukat. So it's Chukat and Balak, but we will be focusing on Balak today. But this Shabbat is Chukat and Balak. Now, if one sec. So in the Parshat Balak, we read about this case of Balak, who was the son of Zippor, who was the king of Moabites, and he got nervous seeing the Israelites and how numerous they are, and so he asked the visionary, not a prophet, he was not a prophet, the Balaam, to curse people, and instead, as we know, he blessed the Israelites. So we'll be studying this topic, and I found a beautiful source sheet actually put up by Rabbi Alex Kress, Balaam, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So anyone wants to start with reading Numbers 22 verses 4-6?
I can do it, I guess.
Okay, go for it.
Balak, son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at that time, sent messengers to Balaam, son of Beor and Pethor, which is by the Euphrates, in the land of his kinsfolk, to invite him, saying, "There is a people that came out of Egypt that hides the earth from view, and it is settled next to me. Come then, put a curse upon this people for me, since they are too numerous for me. Perhaps I can thus defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed indeed, and he whom you curse is cursed."
Yeah. So now a Jewish study Bible, the story of Balaam. Maggie, can you read? The story of the seer, Balaam.
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay.
Inserted into the narrative of Israel's final preparation to enter Canaan is the story of the Moabite king Balak and the prophet Balaam, who he hires to curse Israel into oblivion. This independent composition, possibly originating from a different scribal circle than those associated with other portions of Numbers, is composed of narrative and poetry. It is inserted in this juncture, the beginning of Israel's period of encampment in Moab, because the outcome of Balak's scheme determines if Israel will inherit the promised land. The account is a contest in the divine realm between God of Israel and those supernatural elements available to Balak. At times it may be amusing and somewhat mocking the non-Israelite prophet. The message of this pericope is serious. The intent of the Lord reigns supreme and cannot be superseded. It is a difference between the prophecy of Moses and the prophecy of Balaam.
Wait, hold on. You missed even the power.
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong page. Sorry. Even the powers of well-known non-Israelite prophet are ultimately controlled by God. In the end, nothing in Balaam's 4 oracles exacts a curse upon Israel. In fact, his prophecies function in reverse, blessing Israel and cursing her enemies. The biblical traditions are not consistent in their assessment of Balaam's intentions. A visionary named Balaam is attested outside the Bible on a fragmentary inscription on the wall plaster, late 9th to 8th century, from a temple at Deir Allah in Transjordan, which records the night vision of a certain Balaam. The seer Balaam may have been a legendary character of antiquity or a real person well known in the region.
Okay. Wow. So that's I don't think that until I read this, I actually thought that Maggie, can you mute yourself? No.
I'm sorry?
Can you mute yourself now?
Sure, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I don't think I've ever thought of Balaam being a real person. And so that was really interesting for me to read. Maggie was not somebody who was somebody else's background is pretty loud. I wonder who that could be. How about maybe I should mute everyone. And then if you want to speak, then you'll unmute yourself, okay? Okay, I think I'm... yeah, so Arlene, I think it was coming from you because I muted you and now it's okay. So I'm going to unmute now Maggie back. I'm trying. Okay, well, if you want to speak, then you will have to unmute yourself. So, do you remember how God had tried to influence Balaam and to stop Balaam from going and cursing the Israelites? A very famous story. So how God was trying to influence Balaam's decision. Anyone? It's not mentioned in the chapter itself.
Yeah, it was the donkey that he was riding on.
Right. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the comical part that they refer to.
Right. So what was the story with donkey then?
Well, the donkey saw a vision of an angel blocking the path as Balaam was going to go start one of these cursing sessions. And the donkey holds up. Balaam doesn't see the donkey, doesn't see the angel, and I think it's something like 3 times he beats the donkey, and the donkey's like, why are you beating me? I'm trying to protect you.
Right. So right. I see the angel. So in other words, Balaam does not see the angel that the donkey sees, right? So and the donkey is able to speak. So God has brought all these miracles to stop Balaam from his journey onto cursing the Israelites. So that was quite remarkable.
And then Balaam agrees to speak the words that God puts in his mouth.
That's right. That's right. So it's really interesting here that's what the rabbi is talking here about, the fact that even though Balaam, who was a non-Jewish seer, still is under God's command, no matter whether the God is the God of the Jews or not. And this is a very, and it's happening in the 4th book of Torah, right? By then, we already seen many miracles that God had performed in front of Israelites and in front of Egyptians. But yet, I think this story really serves as to show yet again how God is God for all. And if anyone dares to curse the Israelites, and it's funny because God had punished the Israelites themselves already along the journey so many times, and yet it's like, you don't touch my children. No matter how I might be upset or not with my children, they're mine. You don't touch them. And so in the case of Balaam, God certainly shows the divine power and is able to change. I mean, this is a very drastic change. And I'm sure that Balaam was intimidated by his ruler, Balak. And I'm sure he was risking his life by disobeying him. And yet he did, because he realizes that God's power is surpassing that of some king of Moab. So anyone has comments up until now? Yeah, done.
Just a quick question. I think it was in the actual passage above. It says Balak is the son of Zippor, and Moses' wife is Zipporah.
I
Is
know.
that Hebrew for Zippor or Zipporah mean anything?
Oh, well, Tzipporah means bird.
Bird?
Tzipporah means bird. And we know that Tzipporah wasn't Jewish, right? So I don't know if, to be honest, if it's coincidental, there's the same name. I don't think they're related, frankly, but maybe it is an indication that, there's a connection with a Midianite tribe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Ellen, I can only see the tip of your head.
Okay.
There you are. Hi.
Hi.
And Arlene, I don't know if you heard that I welcomed you joining us for the first time. I know you've been in the session with Rabbi Safin. I'm really glad that you joined us today. So thank you. Okay, we're going to move on with the text as soon as I get to move it. Hold on. Oh, wait. Oops.
Did Balaam bless the Israelites because he wanted to and recognized God, or was that God's influence not permitting him to curse them?
We'll find out. It's a very good question. Okay, someone from Micha chapter 6, verse 5.
My people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, plotted against you, and how Balaam, son of Beor, responded to him. Recall your passage from Shittim to Gilgal, and you will recognize the gracious acts of Adonai.
Mm-hmm. So, again, it emphasizes here in this passage how Balaam, look, on one hand, he's convinced by God. On the other hand, it's clear that the credit is given to Balaam for doing that, right? So, and I've always been struck by this. On one hand, it's not like he had a choice. He had to listen to God. God made it pretty clear to him by having his donkey disobeying him. But then on the other hand, we come to the passage that Balaam himself came to realization that that's the right thing to do. So I think it actually is, and I know the Marsha would have jumped in here, as an educator. This is really a great ability of a really good educator to have the student come to the conclusion on his or her own, even though the teacher is helping and guiding that student to the right decision. same with the parent, and I find same as being the wife. To sometimes to have the husband agree with your decision and make him think that that's his own. Sorry, Dan, as the only male
Hmm.
participant.
Now I get the undercurrents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting that he's considered a visionary and not a prophet, and that's. I'm not sure exactly what that distinction is. It'd be interesting to know what the
Let's
real
so
distinction.
let's pause on that actually and try to figure out what would be the distinction. So what do you think is the distinction between the visionary and the prophet? What could it be? Let's think of the prophets that we know. Who are the prophets that we know?
Like Isaiah and
Jeremiah.
Daniel. So
What's in common among all the prophets?
they tell the future.
Inspired by God.
But
Driven by
the
God.
spirit can tell the future. Oh, they're inspired by God. Right.
And driven by God.
Driven by God.
And they get the people to repent.
And get the people to repent. So the seer or the visionary or like a tarot reader, they may predict the future, but it has nothing to do with God. And God actually is not exactly keen on those people who are doing that. And by the way, there is a big discussion in Talmud also with regards to that difference. But then a prophet is someone who is designated by God to preach to people and to prevent people from doing wrong because of the different challenges and different bad things that may befall upon them, right? So prophet has a much stronger role and more responsibility, and also a harder role because the prophet has to go and tell people based on the word of God. And people may, and it happened, people will disobey, people will argue with the prophet, people will ban prophet and, make his life miserable. And yet the prophet will have to continue to stick to the word of God because the prophet is sent by God and guided by God.
Isn't a visionary also just someone who really gathers information of what's going on around them and discusses the way they think things should go, the way they envision the future?
No, the visionary is more of a, close to like a tarot teller. In the past, like Pharaoh. Remember, Pharaoh had various visionaries who would also interpret his dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joseph was the one who was the best interpreter. So we could say that Joseph was the seer, the visionary, but he was not a prophet.
The interaction between Balaam and the Israelites was zero, correct?
Yeah.
He didn't actually talk to anybody. He stood away from the camps and was supposed to curse them and ended up blessing them.
Right.
But there was no. So
No
is that a distinction as well between visionary and prophet?
Right. Interesting point. So in other words, but the prophets do have interaction with people. So it's not, I don't think that's the one of the things. Yes, Judy.
So I have a question. I'm kind of thinking about it. So, and maybe I'm interpreting this too much. I'm kind of wondering. So does God actually? So does Balaam? Are the words that are going to come out of his mouth, which potentially are going to be harmful, not good? Are they actually? Like, I'm kind of analyzing this, thinking, does he change his mind as he's speaking to make them sound, to have them be nice things and not harmful things? Or is it literally God talking through him and putting those words in his mouth?
No, my understanding is that God influenced in a way, but it is in fact Balaam who speaks.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure about that. So,
Mhm.
'cause to me, there is a distinction there.
No, the God was moving monkey to speak certain words, but it was Balaam. That's what I said a little early on, that it's like God helped Balaam to make the right decision.
Right, okay. So then it was coming from Balaam, but influenced by God.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on, or we still want to discuss this part?
I looked at a Wikipedia article about Balaam last night, and it says that in rabbinic literature, Balaam is represented as one of 7 Gentile prophets. And he was at first a mere interpreter of dreams, later becoming a magician until finally the spirit of prophecy depended upon him. So it sounds as though, as with most things Jewish, there were a plenitude of views on whether or not he was a prophet.
Okay, but even if he was, he didn't become until later on. At the time that we're discussing right now, he's just a seer.
Ah, okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, Sifrei Dvarim, anyone wants to read?
I guess I will.
And there shall, did somebody else want to read?
I don't know, maybe Ilana?
Sure.
Okay. But good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
And there shall not arise in Israel again a prophet such as Moses, but among the nations there did arise. And who was he? Bilam, the son of Beor. But there is a difference between the prophecy of Moses and the prophecy of Bilam. Moses did not know who was speaking to him, and Bilam did know.
Oh, let's stop there. So that answers a couple of of your questions, right? Both Judy and Claudia, who brought up in terms of him, the known in rabbinic literature as a prophet. And so here is the distinction between Moses and Bilam. Interesting, right? That Moses at first didn't know, and then Bilam knew exactly whose direction he is following. Okay, keep going.
The speech of the hearer, Bilam, of the word of the Almighty, Moses did not know when he would speak to him until he did so. Bilam did know, and the knower of the knowledge of the Most High, Moses did not speak with him unless he was standing. And you here stand with me. And Bilam spoke with him when he was fallen. The vision of the Almighty shall he see, fallen, and his eyes uncovered.
Interesting. So this phrase, we mean by the vision of the Almighty shall he see fallen and his eyes uncovered. I wonder if there is interpretation on that. Let me see. References. That's limit bar 24. Yeah, I don't see the comments on this here. Okay, so anyone wants to comment on this last phrase? The vision of the Almighty shall he see fallen and his eyes uncovered.
Well, if you look at what Balaam said in those prophecy sessions, visionary sessions, or whatever, when he's looking out at the Israelite camps, he's really giving praise upon what he sees from his vantage. Moses, I don't recall doing that. Moses would say, here are the laws, and this is what you do, and there was a lot of dialogue, but there was not anything, even, if you look back at, I guess, Deuteronomy and just look at the whole book, it's do the right thing, because you better do the right thing. If you do the wrong things, you're going to be cursed and you're going to be exiled and all that. I didn't really recall Moses praising the Israelites. Maybe missing the point, but it's not like, hey guys, you're doing great. I know 40 years is a really tough time, but you're awesome and you're going to be wonderful moving into the promised land.
That's a good point.
Did he ever say that? I don't know.
No,
Mhm.
I don't recall. You're right.
Okay. And I also see that difference is, Moses is following what God said, is, what he should do, how he should proceed in different situations, where Balaam is the one, I make the assumption, more free will, that he's decided to do the right thing.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think Ellen raises her hand.
Yeah, I just thought that I see the last sentence or so, he spoke with him when he was fallen, so that he could hear, Moses could only hear God in a certain position and a certain time, where it seems that with Balaam, he could be anywhere. He could be laying down. And does that make a difference? Probably so. I don't know. What do you think?
I see the last verse, the vision of Almighty shall he see fallen, his eyes uncovered, is when Balaam hits like the low in terms of cursing the Israelites, even
Mhm.
though he didn't really know them. He was just commanded to curse. So that's like a low fall. It's, he's fallen, and then his eyes uncovered by God, and then he changes 180 degrees, and he blesses them.
Maybe,
Okay.
sorry, maybe it also sort of means that when he has changed his mind from his thoughts, he's fallen off those thoughts,
Hmm.
and in doing so, his eyes were open to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
not
Eyes
really-
are open to the truth. Right. I like it. Yeah.
And as far as Moses, I think Moses, it's kind of like when I was teaching and I would tell the kids what to do, and some of them would do it step by step by step, exactly what I said, and others would do what I asked them to do, but then say, I thought at this point it would be better to do this. So some people just follow directions as they are given, and others think about the directions they are given and
Mm.
maybe put in some insights and in thoughts of their own.
So in other words, I think what you're saying also is that it's like in the case with Abraham and Noah. Noah walked behind God, and Abraham walked along with God. In other words, we remember when Abraham questioned God's decision on destroying everybody, and he's like, well, what if I find 40 tzaddikim? What if I find 30 tzaddikim, right? So he's trying to stand up to God. And same with Moses. Moses would question some of God's decisions, and for once exhibiting his anger, he ended up not going into the land of Israel. Balaam, on the other hand, is not daring to do so. He says what God expects of him. Is it something that you were trying to say, Arlene? Or
No, that's okay.
no? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay, no, but I liked your comparison very much. So, what did you teach?
Kindergarten through 6th grade.
Oh wow, all of those grades?
Kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th.
In public school?
Yes.
Which ones?
In
What age?
Elizabeth,
Did you
New
enjoy?
Jersey.
What age did you enjoy the most?
Usually like 5th and 6th grade. When they were old enough to really be thinking on their own and having really interactive dialogues and thoughts.
Mm. Yeah, and yet still young to actually be respectful to the teacher, right?
One would hope so.
Not yet in junior high, which I've always thought is the larval stage of humanity.
Yes,
Yep.
junior high was the worst. I would rather be in high school than junior high. And as a matter of fact, that's why the township of Elizabeth did away with all of their middle schools, because having that many middle school age children together was starting to prove too dangerous. So all of the schools became K through 8.
Mm.
Wow. Good idea for a lot of places.
Well, actually, the school I went to in Russia, we had first grade through high school all together in the same building.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. All right.
Big school? Was
Yes.
it a big school?
Yeah, it's a big school.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on. Numbers 31, verse 8. Who wants to read?
I guess I'll read.
Okay.
Along with other victims, they slew the kings of Midian, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. They also put Balaam, son of Beor, to the sword. According to this tradition, he is killed for his association with the Midianites, though whom he incites the Israelites to the apostasy of Baal Peor.
So we're reading now that Balaam supposedly was killed. Now, what, anyone recalls what was the idea of behind what? Why were the Midianites killed?
Bless you.
Let's see.
I've forgotten exactly, but presumably somehow they led the Israelites into forbidden practices or lewd acts or worshiping other gods as well.
Right. So you know how this portion is going to end and the next Pinchas will begin?
What was the question?
How this portion Balak will end and the next Pinchas will begin. Do you know what's transpiring at the end?
Yeah, they're all fooling around with each other and other tribes. And Pinchas goes and impales the mixed couple. I forget who was who, but it was an Israelite and a non-Israelite.
Israelite and a Midianite. And Pinchas, what did Pinchas do?
He impales him with a sword. He stabs him.
Right.
And kills him. And that was that's a whole thing in itself. Pinchas and his actions and the good that resulted from it, but also the lesson of not to be overly fanatical. But that's, I don't know if you're on it. Were you gonna get into that discussion as well?
Well, so, but remember that, so in the portion of Balak at the end, we were reading that God had sent all this plagues to the sickness to the Israelites because of their association with the Midianites.
Funny thing is that Moses' wife was a Midianite.
Right.
Which I never quite understood why that was okay. Yitro was a Midianite priest.
Right.
And then they have this part here.
And yet, so let me find the part where we read about Midianites. So hold on, give me a sec. Hold on. Let's jump to 7. Now I'm going to people common will advise you what people he took a parable and sent them with Balaam, son and Is God saying precedes thoughts and see, but now I'm beholding. Sorry, I'm going through it. Wait, did I jump to 7? I thought I did. 7th portion, yes. Okay.
Wikipedia.
Okay, here we go. He went after the Israelite man into the chamber. Okay, well, hold on. Preceding the Israelite man came. Hold on. Most sentenced judges. Let's take all leaders of the people hanging on the Lord. Israelite. Okay, Israel settled in Shittim, and the people began. Okay, you see where I am? Right here.
Right.
Israel settled in Shittim, and the people began to commit harlotry with the daughters of Moabites. They invited the people to these sacrifices of their gods. That was their sin. That because God was upset that, you know, because the man, Israelite man, started associating themselves with those women and started going and worshiping their gods with a small g. They invited people to the sacrifice of their gods, and the people ate and prostrated themselves to their gods. Israel became attached to Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord flared against Israel. The Lord said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people and hang them before the Lord facing the sun, and then the flaring anger of the Lord will be removed from Israel. Moses said to the judges of Israel, each of you shall kill the man who became attached to Baal Peor. So the statue, the god from small g. Then an Israelite man came and brought the Midianite woman to his brethren before the eyes of Moses and before the eyes of the entire congregation of the children of Israel while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So here's the answer. So I guess the Moabites and Midianites, they were together in terms of their continuing worshiping. So that's where the curse came from, because the Israelites became involved in the idolatry. Okay.
Yeah, that's what Claudia said just before, I think.
Yeah.
Is Midian like a portion of Moab or vice versa? Is one a
yeah, I think they're next to each other.
Okay.
Isn't this sort of, I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
No, go on.
Now, I was just going to say, this sort of sounds to me that the men were weak of nature and didn't control themselves as they should have, and to carry it to the future of today, where the ultra orthodox and the from people, the women have to make themselves not look nice so that the men will not be tempted to look the wrong way, or the men cannot hear a woman sing aside from his own wife, so that he's not tempted.
Are you making a parallel between the temptation that Israelites had with Moabite women and the Midianite women and women in general?
And how the men of the Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox and Hasidic communities.
Well, it dates. It's not just this text, but in general, of course, we know how these communities are trying to avoid men being tempted by the sin, so-called, and averting their eyes. By the way, it's really funny. So Emily the other day asked me, my older one, who's 16, so as we were driving, and all of a sudden she says, Mom, what if the religious, the Orthodox man is driving the car, and you need to look to the right when you make the right turn, let's say, and there is a woman in a miniskirt, let's say. Can he still look in her direction when he needs to make a turn? I mean, the fact she asked this question, I was like blown away. I said, wow, Emily, that's a really great question for response. And I said, well, that would be a pikuach nefesh, which means actually Rabbi Safran talked about it, saving for the sake of saving the life. So I'm sure that the rabbinic response would be even the Orthodox that yes, he can look because it is for the purpose of pikuach nefesh, right?
He can look, but he can't enjoy.
Yeah, well, it would be for a split of a second. But I was like, wow, Emily, I can't believe you asked this question. That was really good. But yes, so traditionally, of course, the Orthodox the interpretation of the law regarding with the temptation towards women, they are not supposed to look, they're not supposed to even at the bus, they have to look down, right? Not so. If you've ever been in Jerusalem, especially, and you know, some Orthodox with a big black house, they pass you, they're not going to even look in your direction. They would look like they're down or straight. But I don't think that was the only time that, you know, influenced that decision. Is just in general the chauvinistic approach of Orthodoxy towards women. So I hope that answers the question. But I don't. But this is more deeper in terms of the Orthodox actually uses passage more so to interpret the halacha of marrying only Jew.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been used a lot in halacha, in the rabbinic law, in Orthodoxy.
Patriarchal systems always blame everything bad on the women.
Right.
So nothing is new there.
Wasn't this more than, it seems to me that this wasn't so much of the Israelite men marrying the other women, but fooling around with them without the benefit of marriage.
The way I read it is not so much of even the fooling around, but the fact that those women then involve those men in idolatry. So that's the worst part of this all.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on.
Interestingly, I was just seeing that the Midianites are descendants of Abraham by his second wife,
Yeah, he remarried after Sarah died.
Keturah. And that, of course, when Joseph was sold into slavery, it was either the Ishmaelites or the Midianites. So not great family relationships.
No.
They're distant relatives.
Mhm.
Okay, Claudia, you want to read Numbers 31:16?
Yes. Yet they are the very ones who, at the bidding of Balaam, induced the Israelites to trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, so that the Lord's community was struck by the plague.
Okay, and we continue to read in Joshua.
Thereupon Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, made ready to attack Israel. He sent for Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you, but I refused to listen to Balaam. He had to bless you, and thus I saved you from him.
So Joshua is saying, right, thereupon Balak, son of Zippor, made ready to attack Israel, Balaam, but I refused to listen to Balaam. He had to bless you, and thus I saved you from. Oh no, God is saying, okay. God is saying here, thereupon Balak, do you understand what God is saying? Thereupon Balak, son of Zippor, the king of Moab, made ready to attack Israel. He sent for Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you. But I, God, refused to listen to Balaam. He had to bless you, and thus I saved you from him. Okay? So I think that it's God speaking here, not
Yes.
Joshua.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Next passage from Pirkei Avot, a long one. Who wants to read?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Anyone who has these three things is from the students of Abraham, our father, and anyone who has three other things is the students of Balaam, the evildoer, who has a good eye, a humble spirit, and a small appetite is from the students of Abraham, our father, and one who has an evil eye, a haughty spirit, and a broad appetite is from the students of Balaam, the evildoer. What difference is there between the students of Abraham, our father, and the students of Balaam, the evildoer? The students of Abraham, our father, in this world and possess the next world, as it is said in Proverbs 8:21. There is what for those that love me to inherit, and their treasures will I fill. But the students of Balaam, the evildoer, inherit purgatory and go down to the pit of destruction, as it is stated in Psalms. And you, God, you will bring them down to the pit of destruction, the people of blood and deceit. They will not live out half their days, and I will trust in you.
So, by the way, I think that Claudia's finding is very appropriate and I'm glad that you brought it up before we read this passage, right? So if there is any family connection at all, even though I sense that like Moabs are connected with Midianites. And so the students of Abraham, in other words, the descendants of Abraham who had the covenant with God versus Balaam, who is from people who did not have a covenant with God. And there's the then distinction between the disciples of Abraham versus disciples of Balaam.
I have a question. What is a broad appetite versus a small appetite? I'm not sure exactly what they means by appetite.
I think in this sense, it means in terms of doing the good deeds. And
Desire.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in the context of the Pinchas situation, the men that were seduced by the Midianite women or Moabite women, that's a broad appetite. No pun intended. But sorry, but
Yes.
Claudia appreciate that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But you know, I do think you know, it speaks to that. I mean, I always wonder about it in terms of, you know, appetite for food. I mean, that's sort of the natural inclination to think.
But broadly, it means an appetite for money.
For money, yeah, the material,
anything.
the material possessions. So while the descendants and disciples of Abraham are more of a spiritual thinkers, at the same time, the Balaam are more into materialism and appetite for, like you said, the materialistic pleasures and the immediate pleasures. Versus
maybe the small appetite is one who is happy and satisfied with what they have.
nice.
The broad appetite is someone who never feels they have enough and always wants more.
Yeah, moderation and all is not their watch.
Both Claudia and Arlene, beautiful. Okay, hold on, let me move this. Oops. Okay, here we go. Sanhedrin. Maggie, you want to read Sanhedrin?
The Mishnah teaches the four prominent commoners, Balaam, Doeg, and Tithopel.
Ahithophel, yeah.
Okay, and Gehazi have no share in the world to come. The Gemara elaborates. The name Balaam is interpreted as a contradiction of without a nation, Balaam, or one who has to share in the world to come with the Jewish nation, Alternatively, the name Balaam is interpreted as one who wore down the Jewish people. Bilaam, he is the son of Beor, one who engaged in bestiality.
Well,
That's
clearly,
very wrong.
they were all idol worshippers. Doeg was the Edomite, the chief hencman to actually King of Israel, King Saul. What else we have? The Gehazi. So they're all, Gehazi was a servant of prophet Elisha. He appears in connection with the history of the Shunammite woman and her son, and of Naaman the Syrian. He overcame with Averes obtained on the prophet's name 2 talents of silver and 2 changes of garments from Naaman. Okay, and the last one is Ahithophel. Let's see.
Counselor of King David.
Yep. So they're all. So in other words, all of those seers were connected with Jews.
The Talmud
but-
says of Ahithophel, a man like Balaam, whose great wisdom was not received in humility as a gift from heaven, and so became a stumbling block.
So even though he ended up doing the right thing, he still gets a bad rap.
Yep.
So they don't. All of them have no share in the world to come. In other words, unlike prophets, the official prophets. Remember, we had in the beginning the comparison between prophet and the seer. So unlike the prophets, these guys are not going to get the place in the world to come.
Yet we use the words of Balaam every Shabbat morning with the opening of Matov Vu.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. We're getting
No,
there.
but I'm just saying, it's kind of like, somebody who's not who doesn't have a share in the world to come is still put up on a pedestal in our own tradition. At least the words are.
That's right. So on one hand, this 4 guys did definitely some good to the Israelites, and yet they are not worthy, according to Sanhedrin, to the benefits of the world to come.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Another Sanhedrin, which will probably shed a little bit more light. Do you mind if I read?
Okay.
Mar Zutra says, Balaam was a diviner by using his, Mar son of Ravina says, engaged in bestiality with his donkey. The one who says that he was a diviner by using his derives it as restated, and the one who says that he engaged in bestiality with his donkey derives it as follows. It is written here, he crouched, he lay down. And it is written there, between her legs he sunk, he fell, he lay.
Oh, boy.
Which is interpreted as a reference to sexual intercourse between Sisera and Jael. Well, rabbis have to dig deeper, right? I mean, they think, well, Balaam is a nice guy. He did a right thing by us, but why couldn't he get to the world to come? So we need to dig deeper. It's like in the politics, You find a candidate, and somebody is not happy with his candidate, so they start digging into his sexual past. Balaam describes himself, and he knows the knowledge of Most High. And the Gemara asks, now, if the knowledge of his animal he did not know, is it possible that the knowledge of the Most High he knew? The Gemara explains, what is the meaning of the knowledge of his animal? The princess accompanying him said to him, what is the reason that you did not ride horses? Balaam said to him, I brought the horses to graze in the pasture and rest there. The donkey said to him, Am I not your donkey? Balaam said to the donkey, merely for burdens, not for riding. The donkey said to him, upon which you have ridden. Balaam said to the donkey, that was mere happenstance and is not a regular occurrence. The donkey said to him, your whole life until this day. The donkey continued, moreover, I perform a conjugal act for you, and we engage in bestiality at night. From where is this derived? It is written here, was I ever want Babaskin Hiskanti to do what's about this? I'm not sure whether the Hebrew is to do so to you. And it is written there with regard to Avishag the Shunammite, and let her be a companion, shochenet, to him. Just as the root Samach Kaf Nun indicates sexual relations in the case of Avishag, the same is true with regard to the donkey. Okay, you get the point. Balaam was unable to best his donkey in a debate. The Gemara asks, Father, what then is the meaning of the phrase, and he knows knowledge of the Most High. So again, looking for the reason why Balaam was still prosecuted, even though he blessed the Israelites, and that's a quite a research that rabbis did on poor Balaam. What do you think?
I don't know where they come up with this stuff.
Well, it's definitely, remember we learned about the Pshat and Drash, so it's definitely a Drash.
Oh yeah.
Digging really, really deep to find the faults on poor Balaam. And to conclude, perfect timing, 2:00. Nevertheless, we read, and like you said, we still commemorate Balaam every single morning with a prayer, on Shabbat, every Shabbat, how fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling Israel, Matuvo Halecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, which was the culmination of Balaam's journey with his donkey, and instead of cursing, he blessed the Israelites.
Interesting. Again, the Wikipedia article turned out to have lots of bits and pieces. According to Jewish legend, Balaam was made this powerful in order to prevent the non-Jewish tribes from saying, if we only had our own Moses, we would be as pious as the Jews. So, okay, now you have someone as powerful as Moses. Are you as pious? Nah, it didn't work.
Yeah.
That's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
What's for next week?
What's for next week? Let's see. Hold on. I tell you. Oh, Pinchas.
Pinchas.
I said that. Pinchas, right.
Right.
Yeah. So even before you receive the study text from me, you can start reading the text. And I see that Claudia has been doing that.
Well, yeah.
By the way, Claudia, I have some good news. So Stu and Shirley started working on the room for the museum, for the museum, and it's, oh my God, it's looking great.
That's nice. I really have to talk with my brother-in-law. With all the plague hitting us, I totally forgot about that. So.
Yeah, so same with Ellen. Both of you donated a lot of material. So he made a table with the glass, just like in the museum, that we can put all the material there. And also the library donated like a bulletin boards that we can put on the wall. So it's going to look like a real museum. I'm very excited.
Oh, that'd be great.
Be lovely. Yeah, I have
That's
to.
wonderful.
I have to talk and see what we can agree on and dig out other pictures and things.
That would be amazing.
That sounds lovely.
So thank you, everybody. And Maggie, I'll talk to you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Good seeing you all.